Starting Module 2, our first topic will be Introduction to Polynomials and Polynomial Functions. I thought we'd just do a little brief review of some of the terms we'll be using as background. And we can look down here for example 1, where they're asking us to identify the terms of a polynomial. Well, a term is something that is separated by either a negative sign or a positive sign. So if we were to count the number of terms in this expression, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, all of these expressions that we're going to see here are what we call polynomials. Now, in a polynomial, sometimes another name is given. If there's only one term, we use the prefix monomial. If there are two terms, we call it a binomial. 3 terms, a trinomial, and then all of them, of course, are considered a polynomial. It's just these 3 that have a special name. Now, we're going to define the degree of a term, and basically it's when you have a term like this, 3x squared yz. Well, for degree, you just look at the variables and you add their exponents together, keeping in mind when none is written, there's a 1 there. So the degree of this term would be 5. That would be the sum of the exponents on the variable within that term. Now, another word we could look at while we're here is the word coefficient. When we have a variable or a series of variables, what is the number with those variables? Well, in this case, it's a 3, and it's a positive 3. Well, that is the coefficient of that term. Now, sometimes you'll see something like this, y to the 3rd, and there is no coefficient visible. Well, when you have a term and there's no number, we assume there's a 1 there. So the coefficient of this would be a 1. Now, if you had x to the 2nd, and it was a negative x to the 2nd, the coefficient of this term would be, again, you'd put a 1 there, and the answer would be a negative 1. Okay, some background should make this section a little easier. So as we said earlier, what are the terms? Well, we can just outline them. It's what is separated by either a negative or a positive sign. So these are the terms. Now, what are the degrees of these terms? Well, we said it would be the sum of the exponents. So for this one, and we can write these right underneath, the degree of this term is 2. This term is 10. Now, there isn't an exponent, but there's a 1 there, so that would be 1. Now, there is no variable here, so we say a degree of this kind would be 0. Now they're asking us to identify the coefficient of each term. Well, here it's going to be a 9. For this term, it's a negative 7. For this term is a positive 1. And here there's only the coefficient, so negative 2. All right, let's move it up. Now for number 3, we've done things like this before, where we have a function statement, and we want to evaluate when our value for x is a negative 4, and then later is 0. So a way to do this, we said, was to make a little t-chart to help us organize our data. And this was f of x now. And our items would be a negative 4 and a 0. So we substitute negative 3 and then negative 4 in parentheses that we will cube, plus a negative 4 squared minus 20. All right, let me get my calculator out and do some. Now, when we take a negative 4 and raise it to the third power, the sign of that answer will be a negative. Odd number of negatives gives you a negative 64. A negative times a negative makes it a positive. Squaring a negative gives you a positive 16. Now I'm just combining these two to get a negative 4, and then adding it to this. That's going to give me a 188. Now if x is a 0, anything times 0 is 0, so this is 0. 0 squared is 0, so this is just a negative 20. Again, you want to write your answers out neatly, orderly, so that you can see once you put your answer into MathLab where you might have gone wrong, and then can discover if you have an error yourself. Or, remember, always bring your problems into MathLab. Now, here again, we're going to do a little substitution where they're saying pi is 3.14, and they want to know what will the area of a circle be with this radius. So the area of a circle, which is pi 3.14 times 15.5, and we have to square that, and I'll put that into my calculator, and when I do, I get 754.385. So that would be the area of the circle, and these would be miles. All right, let's go on. For example 4, they want us to estimate the range of this function from its graph. Now keep in mind there is an arrow there and there's an arrow there. So range, remember, are your y values. So where is this going to down here? Well, negative infinity. And where is this going here? Positive infinity. So putting the range in interval notation, it's coming from negative infinity and going to positive infinity. And throughout these lectures, keep in mind, if you have a question, just let me know. Now you may not have a graphing calculator, so what I've done is made a very crude sketch of this. This is what your screen would look like. And they're asking you to estimate the range of the function. Again, this would be y values. Now, a couple of things of looking at an equation like this, or a function, is that if your first term is negative, then these sort of parabolas are going to open up to the bottom. If your first term is positive, parabolas open up to the top. If they're negative, they open up to the bottom. Now, if x is 0, just to do 1 point, this would be 0, this would be 0. Y, which we said we could substitute for this, would be 2. And that's where we get this point here. So, estimating what is the range? Well, this is coming up from negative infinity here, as it is from this side as well. So you're coming up then from, and this will be the range, a negative infinity, and if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this goes up to 6, and 6 is included in the set, so the range of this will be what we have listed here. So just a little background, and again, we're not expected to have graphing calculators. Later I'm going to show you online where you can get a free calculator, and if you don't have one, can use it. All right, let's go on. Now, they're not giving us lots of examples. You'll have that when you do your practice and quiz me. But we do want to show you what they're talking about. So here they're asking us to combine like terms. And like terms are those terms whose exponents on the variables are the same. So the variables are the same and the exponents are the same. So these are like terms. This gives us 8x plus 1x would be 9x. And then 18 minus 5 is 13. Now they're also asking us to write the answer in descending order. That is, your highest power or degree starts off, and as you go to the right becomes lower. So let's take a look at this one. Now here they're saying we have like terms. Let's identify those first. So these are like terms. Now when we are combining like terms, we only deal with the coefficients. So we have a negative 5 and a 3 will give us a negative 2n to the second. Now there is a 2n and a 1/4 n. So what we need to do is add 2 and then add 1/4 to it. And then these, in a sense, would have an n there. But these are the things we actually add. Well, this happens to be 2 over 1. What's my common denominator? Well, my common denominator here is going to be 4. So I have to multiply this by 1 in the form of 4 over 4. So this becomes 8/4 plus 1/4, which makes it 9/4 n. And that's what I put here in my second term in descending order. And then we have just a -9 and a -4. And did I forget anything? No. We're going to get a -13. Okay, that looks like the answer. Now, this might be a general way of dealing with fractions, but a shorter way would be if this is just 2 1/4, we can think of that as a mixed number that we're going to change to an improper fraction, where we take our denominator, multiply it by 2, get 8, add 1. That gives us 9/4 as well. And just to show you this a little bit more clearly here, 2 plus 1/4. Well, we said that the common denominator between these two would be 4. This is over 1. And we want to make 2/1 into something with a denominator of 4. Now, we are allowed to multiply anything by a 1, and the form of that one that we're choosing in this case is 4/4. That's a 1. So we multiply the numerator by 4 and get an 8. Our denominator by 4, which is what we're looking for, and get the 4. And I kind of jammed it up here, so I felt a little bad. And we have plenty of room. Okay, let's look at our next one here. Now, for this one, we have a negative sign followed by something that is in a parenthesis. Now, there is a protocol for dealing with this, and that's what I want to show you. When you have a negative sign and then a parenthesis, the strategy for that is to remove the parentheses and then change every sign within the parenthesis. So this is what I'm going to put up over here. This negative says remove the parenthesis and change every sign. So this is going to become a negative 9x to the third, a positive x to the second, a negative 3x, and a positive 14. I've seen the negative in front of the parenthesis. I'm removing the parenthesis and changing every sign. Now, here I can just remove the parenthesis because there's, in a sense, a positive sign in front. And I'm just going to copy these under the like term columns. So this is a negative 5x to the third. Now there is no x to the second, so we can skip that. We go to plus 2x, and a negative 11. Now what I've done here, I've changed all of these signs when there's a negative in front of a parenthesis. And here I've just removed the parenthesis. Don't have to change any signs because there was a plus. But I've put them in like term columns. Now the benefit of this is now I just add up these columns. This will be a negative 14 x to the third plus x squared, just adding up these columns. And this becomes a negative x. Now there's a negative 1x, but we don't write the 1. And there I have a plus 3. And by writing this out in this neat, orderly way, lining up my like terms, following what they said and changing these signs, we then get have pretty good chance of getting the right answer. So in winding this up, before we go to some other practice, the key when you have a series of terms that you are to add or subtract, in this case they're telling us we need to subtract because of this negative sign between the parentheses. The rule is remove the parentheses, change all the signs, and then just add. Okay,